Why is it so weird? Alright, so I don't know how to start YouTube videos. One of my New Year's goals this year was to properly start making videos, but my sister is always at home and I'm always at work, so I haven't had a chance because it's weird enough talking to a camera when I'm by myself. I cannot do it when she is in the house. Finally, she's gone out. So I'm going to talk about my top 5 favourite books of 2016. And I know it's like near the end of January already, but better late than never. Okay, let's do this. The first book I'm going to talk about is We Are All Beside Ourselves by Karen J. Fowler. It's best if you go into the book without really knowing anything about it. Unfortunately, my mum, when she recommended this to me, spoiled it for me, but I still enjoyed it a lot. So basically, to give a vague summary, it's about a girl called Rosemary Cook. She's currently at university, and throughout the book she starts talking about her childhood, so she goes back to her past, and it kind of mixes in between the present and the past. The reason I really liked it was because there's a huge amount of animal rights themes in the book, mostly to do with sort of animal testing and the way science uses animals, and it's sort of it's got a lot of sciencey stuff in it, which I found quite interesting because I'm not good at reading non-fiction kind of stuff, so having that non-fiction science stuff in a fiction book was a lot easier for me to like understand it and digest it. And it's definitely sort of the human side of science, so it's kind of looking at do the means justify the ends when it comes to scientific discoveries. The second book I want to mention is The Shark Net by Robert Drewe. It's a memoir about Robert Drewe's childhood growing up in Perth, which is my hometown. And there are not a lot of books written about my hometown. Probably the most famous one would be Cloud Street by Tim Winton. It was really cool to read a book about my city and hear the names of suburbs mentioned that I know, that I've been to, that I've grown up in. Set in the 1950s, 60s, includes chapters that are sort of from the point of view of Eric Edgar Cooke, the notorious serial murderer from the 1960s in Perth, which is also mentioned in Cloud Street. So if you live in Perth, or if you've grown up in Perth, or even just interested in Australian history or sort of Australian culture from the last century, then it's definitely one to read. The third book I'm going to mention is Under the Skin by Michael Faber. This one I picked up because a booktuber I watched, Jane Campbell, highly recommended it. It was one of her favourite books from last year. Apologies if the framing and the lighting is entirely different. The camera I was using kept dying. Okay, so I was talking about Under the Skin. Yeah, as I was saying, it's about a lady called Isobel. It starts off with her driving around the Scottish Highlands and she's picking up hitchhikers, and you have no idea why. She gets really creepy and really atmospheric and really good. Again, this has a lot of animal rights stuff in it. I don't know if Michael Faber is a vegetarian or vegan, but he should be, having written this book, because I would literally give this to people and be like, this is why I'm vegan. Basically, the plot of the book looks at the sort of hypocrisy between loving certain animals and being horrified if they were hurt, and literally eating other animals just purely for pleasure. You're definitely best going into this without knowing anything about it, which is why it's really hard to talk about, because almost everything you want to talk about gives away the plot. So just read it, it's really good. The fourth book I'm going to talk about is Hope Farm by Peggy Frew. This book was nominated for the Stella Prize, so that is a literary prize in Australia that is awarded to the best or the top female writers of the year. It is set in the winter of 1985 about a girl called Silver. She's 13 years old and she and her mum Ishtar are moving to this commune in Melbourne. I really like this book because it was very young adult, I guess, because it is from the point of view of a 13-year-old mostly. So I enjoyed that because I haven't read a lot of young adult for a long time. Silver is a really well drawn character, I thought. She's incredibly intelligent and funny for her age, but you do also get that sense of her incredible loneliness and scared it growing up. I also really liked the descriptions of the bush. Often in Australian literature, the bush is very much romanticized. The way the bush was described in this book I felt was way more realistic, of sort of like sharp and unfriendly. So I definitely recommend this book for people who like young adult, the realistic young adult, and anyone interested in learning a bit about Australia. So my final book is actually probably my favourite book from last year. It is another Australian one. It's called For Isobel by Amy Witting. So it's set in Sydney. It's not set in any particular year. Sometime between like the 40s and the 60s, I think, is how I imagine this set. It is very sort of like that era in its writing and the way people talk. The way Isobel interacts with the world, the way she feels quite apart from it, like she doesn't quite belong, she doesn't know how to socialize, she's just not able to deal with social situations very well. She very much reminded me of Esther Greenwood from The Bell Jar. The book very much deals with the way that society, conservative society of that era, treated people who are different or thought differently. The way that language is used throughout the book and the way that Isobel observes things, and just like certain sentences, I would just read them and be like, so I feel I can totally relate to that. So that's why I think it's my favourite one. It was the second book in the series, and I think I preferred that one mainly because Isobel is less sad in it, even though she's ill. In the second book she gets tuberculosis, but mentally she's a lot better, which is really good, and her observations in that book are even better than in the first one. And what's really upsetting is the author was going to write a third book and then she died. It's really sad. So yeah, that was my top 5 books for 2016. There were heaps of books that I enjoyed last year, but I picked the ones that I thought people probably wouldn't know about. For example, I read Room by Emma Donoghue, How to Build a Girl? No, both of them. How to Be a Girl and How to Build a Girl by Caitlin Moran. Both were excellent. I both highly recommend them, but again, I think people already know about those books, so I just thought I would pick a few that were a little bit more unknown. Alright, hopefully I will get to film another video soon if I ever get more alone time in the house. Until next time, have a great day. Bye!